I'm Macie, and for my English 112 project, I delved into the issue of the scarcity of school resources, where this problem started and where it's going to end. I especially focused on how this issue affected public schools and how, in order for these students to receive a high-quality education, they need more resources. My paper explains the issue's origins, and then discusses a long-term sustainable solution. In my introduction on page 1, I explained how the start of the school system and its conception left holes for problems that extended until today's time, and these problems are gradually getting worse and worse as each generation continues. I also gave my own personal experience and when I first noticed that my school didn't receive some of the things the other schools received. In order to explain this issue, I decided to explain the root of it and how there are different types of resources, and each resource affects each school differently and has a problem in itself that should be solved. This problem is also different for each type of schools, private, charter, and public, because they receive different types of funding. Private schools fund themselves under the tuition, so all of their resources are covered as tuition costs will be raised or lowered. Charter schools are funded by the federal government, and they receive a cost per head for each student they decide to take in. Public schools are mostly funded by state taxes and are lacking resources the most compared to these two types of schools. I gave a personal example of how funding was used in my school and had been decided upon by my county and how it affected each different type of subject that was taught. I also included testimonials of how resources affected different people at my school, students and teachers, and then gave statistics that supported their testimonies. On page 5, I included statistics to further support their testimonials and explain how the problem expanded not just in my school, but in other schools as well. The long-term sustainable solution is basically implementing a program to allow highly qualified teachers to move to high poverty schools, the schools that need the most help. And by providing a better education for them, they'll be able to raise their quality of education, which will allow them to get better jobs and bring more money back into the communities, and the communities will be able to support the schools themselves. So I gave an explanation of the easiest, most obvious solution, which would be to raise taxes. But these high poverty areas, and especially the people that support public schools with their taxes, are unable to provide funds. So by raising taxes, there will be a bigger strain on taxpayers. So in page 6, I gave figures reiterating the extent of the problem, just to show that the problem is so large that a long-term solution, no matter how long it may take, will benefit people more than a short-term solution. So I gave an introduction and once again discussed how paying teachers by providing loan forgiveness and debt forgiveness and using programs like the Teacher Fellowship will be able to solve some of these problems by providing students with a higher education. A slight tax increase would also be included, one that wouldn't put a strain on taxpayers, and these highly qualified teachers would be able to use it to their benefits because they are highly qualified. Page 7, I included how North Carolina was taking advantage of programs like these and reinstituting them into their school systems, like the Master's Pay Program and the Teachers Fellowship Program. Then I restated the basic summary of the solution as I tied things up in the conclusion. I reiterated the introduction, and I tied once again the past to the present and how it affected it. I explained the resources, the school types, and the fundings briefly over again, and then repeated my long-term solution, diving slightly more in depth onto how it would solve these problems. I eventually explained how the benefits of the solution, that communities will be revitalized and students will receive a higher quality education, outweigh the cons, which are that the solution is long-term and will take a while to implement. Thank you for your time.